So on this one, I'm going to show both trial and error and rewrite the middle term. Again, the two different methods that you can use. The first thing, though, that you want to recognize is that each of these, always try to remove any common factors first. Okay, so each of these terms has a factor of x. So if we remove that before we begin, okay, so that is our sort of first step here. And then we can factor this again either by trial and error or rewrite the middle term. So if I used trial and error, there's several situations that I need to test. Okay, one would be 6x and x, and then another would be 3x, 2x. Right, those are the two possibilities that give us our first term of 6x squared. Okay, now our last term need to have a total product of negative 15. So this is going to be a little bit bigger, or these will be some, again, variations because the overall product is negative. You have to consider both the positive and negative. So plus 1, negative 15, negative 1, positive 15. And then we have to look at all the different factor combinations. So 3 and 5, so plus 3, negative 5, negative 3, plus 5. And then finally, plus 5, negative 3, negative 5, plus 3. And then, oops, one last one. I'll move this over. We have the plus 15, negative 1, negative 15, plus 1. All right. So in looking at these, we'll do the same thing with the 2x and 3x. So you can see that this right here is a pretty inefficient way to approach this problem. Okay? If it's all you have, then it's all you have. Okay? But let me talk through what you can do for this, if this is how you're approaching it. Oops. All right. So when you're going through, rather than testing all 2, 4, 6, 8, all 16 of these combinations, you can go through and use just some of the things that you should be familiar with to reduce the number that you have to test. And the way to do that is when you're looking through these factors here, 6x plus 1, 6x minus 1, again, nothing can be removed from that. But what about 6x plus 3? If that were to be one of the factors, then that would mean that you'd be able to remove a common factor of 3 from all of these terms too. Were you able to do that? No. So we can eliminate those combinations here. Okay, 6x plus 5, nothing, but 6x plus 15 also share common factors. Since that can't be removed, we can eliminate that. So now we cut that from 8 to 4 options that we have to test. Down here, the same thing. The 2 doesn't cancel with any of these, but the 3 cancels with the 15, so that's not going to work. And with the 3, so those aren't going to work. Oops. Okay, and so once again, we went from having to test 16 combinations to, if we just know that the binomial factors can't share any common factors, we've now cut that into half. So now we only have to test half of them. So let's go through and see what we have and start eliminating any of the remaining ones. Okay, so now we take our outer plus inners have to give you a overall sum of negative 13. So here 6x times negative 15 plus 1. Again, that's too large of a number. We can eliminate those. 6x times a negative 3 is negative 18 plus 5. Does that give us the middle term? Yeah. So that is our set of factors right here. Okay, so if you use trial and error, again, we recorded all of them, wrote them down, we eliminated half of them, and then when we started to test, it saved, again, that little bit of time. Okay, so we know the factors for this are 6x plus 5. This x still carries along. And then the x minus 3. Set that equal to 0 and solve. And so when we use the zero product rule, what value of x gives you a 0 for this monomial factor? 0. What about this second factor? Opposite of the constant, divide by the leading coefficient, and then the final one, 3. And so those would be your solutions. Now, if we were using rewrite the middle term for this, we would take from this form right here, we'd have our x. What we would do is take 6 times a negative 15. 6 times negative 10 is negative 60. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. Negative 60 plus negative 30 is negative 90. So that would be our set of factors. So we would, or the overall product. So we would look for the set of factors whose product is negative 90, but whose sum is negative 13. And then you know the sum has to be negative. So if I start negative 10 and positive 9, and here we can, again, just kind of build from here. If I take a 2 out of the negative 10, oops, I want my larger number to be negative, so I'm going to use negative 18, and then that leaves a 5. That gives me my total sum. So there's my middle term, negative 18x plus 5x. Drop my first and last terms down, factor by grouping. In the first pair of terms, between 6x squared minus 18x, I can remove a 6x, leaving x minus 3. From the second pair of terms, I can remove a plus 5, leaving x minus 3. If I've done it right, the binomial should be the same. It is, so I remove that. And then the remaining factors of 6x and plus 5 form the terms of my other binomial. So I keep my x out in front, and I get to the same step I was here. I can solve for my factors. And then the final method, which is the easiest, most efficient way, would be to use your TI-89, right? Use the solve feature, and you will get that same solution.